Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Hallowed Be Thy Game. Ren here. And if you're a fan of RPGs and general discussions about the games we all know and love, then you've definitely got a friend in this channel. I post at least once a week on topics from pickup videos, new releases, to just chatting about the games that have reached hallowed status in my heart. So I want to thank you so much for watching, and today we're talking about Hironobu Sakaguchi's incredible work, The Last Story. Let's check it out. As we begin, I want to give a brief history. The Last Story is a part of 3 games that were advocated for by the legendary fan campaign Operation Rainfall. This fan-driven campaign was able to raise awareness and advocate for Xenoblade Chronicles to be localized to the West and also bring over 2 lesser-known titles as well, Pandora's Tower and The Last Story. Can we all just thank our lucky JRPG stars that they did? So now we get to enjoy the incredible work of Hironobu Sakaguchi in what I would personally call his last great release before fading away into the mobile market nightmare zone. I hope he can make a return to form someday, but until then I will say The Last Story holds up to his pristine story standards. Story. The Last Story follows the adventures of Zale and his motley crew of mercenaries as they live job to job and have aspirations of one day becoming knights. I am always a sucker for stories that take heroes that have virtuous hearts but come from lower stations in life. The Last Story captures that childlike wonder and the hope, and it portrays it wonderfully as we see Zale and his comrades trying to do what's right and help those who cannot help themselves. Zale is an altruistic character that we can root for, but if you ask me, the absolute top-tier character is Seren. Now, this could be the very definition of controversial for those of you who have played this, because you're either going to love her or you're going to hop on the phone to get her to an AA meeting, because this booze-guzzling brawler is a top-shelf friend who is just raw and hilarious. The dialogue and story delivery in this game is the perfect snapshot of the era the game was created. I mean, look at these outfits and hairstyles. It's high school all over again. This is not in any way a Final Fantasy game. However, if you are a fan of the Final Fantasy stories that took place before Final Fantasy XI, then this is right up your alley. The unraveling of the story and plot structure is heavily reminiscent of Final Fantasy VIII and IX for me personally. Sakaguchi has created a world with characters that we want to succeed and endure. Zale meets a mysterious girl who is in need of rescuing, and all sorts of adventures will unravel as the story progresses. A little insight as to why I love this story so much: Zale is a bright-eyed mercenary who wants to plant down roots and become a knight, whereas his love interest, Callista, is wanting to see the world and travel all over the place. For the past couple of years, my work has had me traveling a lot. I am so ready to just settle down and stop moving all the time. I feel you, Zale. I feel you. Early on in the game, you discover the personal goals of each character and become motivated to help each of them achieve their dream. These aspirations for a better tomorrow make for perfect motivation for being invested in their story. The supporting cast feels real, and their dialogue between one another, albeit extremely cheesy in the most glorious of ways, it gives the game charm. All of the cast has hopes for a better tomorrow that earn your interest and beg to be achieved. The characters in the Last Stories all have this driving force that creates depth to the story and ensures that when things go south, you hope and pray that they survive. The Last Story has classic love story tropes that are masterfully presented, and I had an absolute blast with the story, start to finish. And let's be honest, with the way the world has been here recently, I think we could all use a classic tale full of lots of adventures. There are so many cinematic moments, and also Ganondorf makes a cameo in the game, my Zelda fans. Music. A song can oftentimes be what we remember most from a story, an event in our life. or perhaps a path we chose not to follow that haunts us still. The last story's soundtrack carries the melancholy nature of hope and potential for brighter days. This is entirely in part to the legendary talents of Nobuo Uematsu. His composition is exquisite, and I find myself listening to his work almost weekly. The music helps raise the story elements that deal with the deeper themes and issues below the surface of the presentation. I truly believe that you will find solace and deep-rooted enjoyment from the somber notes as we follow the party's journey throughout the last story. The title's main theme down to the dungeon themes deserve a listen and a well-earned place on your Spotify playlist. Performance and controls. Now, this game is a Wii title, but I personally have always played this game with the Wii Pro controller. I say this because I have the deepest of hopes that this game will one day make it onto the Nintendo Switch. Now, okay, I know, I want everything on the Switch, but this game deserves to be reintroduced to modern JRPG fans. Any section that requires the use of the Wiimote can easily be substituted for the right analog stick. There are frequently times in the game that you'll have to use the Wii motion controls to find something or perhaps give out a command. The seamless integration of the Wii Pro controller would be perfect for the Switch Joy-Cons. With the recent announcement of Skyward Sword coming to the Switch, there's just no excuse anymore why this game could not come as well. The last story runs smoothly with no noticeably bad load times. It is an older Wii title, so if you're switching from a current gen, then set your expectations accordingly. Also, there is a multiplayer mode that I would love to see return, as I've never had a chance to try it out. Combat and gameplay. Sakaguchi has injected a lot of variety into the quest design of the last story. There is a wonderful amount of different main story and side questing variety that will be available to you as you adventure through the story. Usually, I absolutely hate escort missions, like a lot. But the last story has multiple moments where typically annoying questing tropes are approached in a different manner that just make for a really good time to play. There's one section where you're running and hiding from guards in the city that was legit fun, and I was surprised by how stress-inducing it was. That's just one example of many, as there is a decent amount of variety to be found in missions. The injection of environmental mechanics to help fight monsters was also a much welcome addition. The earliest example of this is destroying a landing where archers are putting down some nasty suppressive fire on your teammates. By taking different mechanics and utilizing different approaches to these systems helps keep the game fresh as you progress through each story. And this game does not overstay its welcome either, as you're looking at only like 20 to 25-ish hours to complete the main story and side missions. I really like this because the game isn't overly difficult as well, as long as you're utilizing the mechanics that are given to you. That said, the last story has a really distinct combat system that separates itself from others in the genre. It plays similarly to Final Fantasy XII in that there are auto attacks and you will have to control the players and move them around. Enemies do have aggro meters, but this can be affected and controlled by the player. What I mean by aggro is who has the attention of the monsters, because we obviously want to keep our one-eyed, squishy mage safe as he's charging up his devastating spells. Where this title differs from Final Fantasy XII is that you are actually able to engage in action RPG combat mechanics such as dodging enemy attacks, blocking, and using button inputs to unleash some really cool abilities. The system may appear simple on the surface, but as the game progresses, it's going to introduce you to more mechanics that will give you the opportunity for further depth to control your team and take on increasing challenges. About 4-ish hours into the game, you're going to gain access to a tactical command menu, which will allow you to control party in battle by giving them orders. The combat system with command entry creates a synergy with resource generation and spending that has elements that remind me of a hybrid between the original Dragon Age and with the presentation of Final Fantasy XII. It works together surprisingly well and leaves a thoroughly enjoyable impact. The party will usually consist of Zale and your group that you can give orders to during combat to help in taking down your foes. Zale, as the main character, has a magical power that enables him to draw the attention of monsters and resurrect his friends in battle up to a certain amount of times. The base encounters in the game are not going to give you too much of a challenge, but I found all the bosses to be really fun and have some cool gimmicks attached to them. Fun fact, some of the bosses in this game have some mega hits that'll just straight up one-shot team members. So if you're struggling to get past a certain section, there's always going to be an area where you can farm enemies for XP and resources. I never really had any trouble with the combat of this game, so feel free to enjoy the story and dive into the tactical command menu to surmount the odds that are against you. The last story has distinct combat systems, lovable characters, and an endearing story that I have fallen in love with. Conclusion. Operation Rainfall did so much to help introduce new audiences to 3 incredible tales. But as modern gamers, I feel it's our duty to help introduce other gamers to the overlooked games that were released late in the Wii's life cycle. The Wii was not known as a JRPG machine, however, it has some of the best on it. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end of today's video, The Last Story. Have you played it? If so, what did you think? Let me know down in the comments. Also, are there any other Wii titles you'd like to see come over to the Switch? Also, let me know. I can't wait to read about it. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe and hit that notification bell so we can all hang out again in the future. And until then, I'll see you guys next time.